This is the early edition, a curated weekday guide to major news and developments over the past 24 hours. Curated by Lizzie Jennings and read by an automated voice. Published April 1st, 2026, on Just Security, an essential resource for those shaping a just and secure world. Here's today's news. Iran war. U.S.-Israeli strikes have killed at least 1,574 civilians in Iran, including 236 children, according to the human rights activist news agency. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said yesterday that attacks on Tehran had struck near the WHO office and shattered its windows, adding that the WHO and other UN agencies have been clearly identified, and strikes damaging them cannot be tolerated. Anushka Patil reports for the New York Times. Israeli missiles struck a major pharmaceutical company in Tehran yesterday morning, destroying its raw material production units and its research and development unit, according to Iran's state news agency. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that Israel is openly and unashamedly bombing pharmaceutical companies. The Israeli military said the factory presented itself as a civilian company, but that it was a false fright. Perrin Behruz and Efrat Livni report for the New York Times. A U.S. journalist has been kidnapped in Iraq with apparent involvement of an Iranian-backed militia, the State Department said yesterday. The Iraqi Interior Ministry said that Shelley Kittleson was seized from a Baghdad street and that efforts were underway to recover her. Gregory Svirnovsky reports for Politico. U.S. Central Command said yesterday that U.S. forces did not launch any strikes at any time into the city of Lamerd during the opening of Operation Epic Fury, refuting reports that U.S. airstrikes hit a sports hall and residential area on February 28, according to a CENTCOM press release. President Trump said yesterday that the United States would wrap up its military campaign in Iran in 2 or 3 weeks, adding that he had dealt with Iran's nuclear program and that gasoline prices would come down as soon as the United States ended the conflict. However, there is no evidence that Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium has been destroyed or removed. The White House said yesterday that Trump would address the nation this evening to provide an important update on the war. Tyler Pager and Edward Wong report for the New York Times. David E. Sanger reports for the New York Times. Trump also said yesterday that the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz was a problem for other countries to deal with themselves. All of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, build up some delayed courage, go to the Strait, and just take it. Gregory Svirnovsky reports for Politico. China and Pakistan yesterday presented a 5-point peace plan to end the war in Iran, calling for an immediate ceasefire, renewed negotiations, protection of key infrastructure, and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. While Trump declined to comment on the proposal, Trump told Axios yesterday that the negotiations with Iran are going well. Barak Ravid reports for Axios. The United Arab Emirates is urging the United States and military powers in Europe and Asia to form a coalition to open the Strait of Hormuz by force, Arab officials told the Wall Street Journal. The UAE is lobbying for a UN Security Council resolution that would authorize such action, the officials said. Summer said, David S. Cloud, and Michael Amon report. A United Nations Development Program report released on Monday warns that just 1 month of the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran could cost the Arab region about $194 billion, shrink its economy by up to 6%, and push 4 million more people into poverty. Erica Solomon reports for the New York Times. Iran war, political response. When asked whether the United States was still committed to NATO's collective defense, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said yesterday, "As far as NATO is concerned, that's a decision that will be left to the president. But I'll just say a lot has been laid bare." In reference to U.S. tensions with France, Italy, Spain, and the United Kingdom over the war in Iran. Hegseth also said, "When we ask for additional assistance or simple access, basing and overflight, we get questions or roadblocks or hesitations." Trump told Britain's Daily Telegraph in an interview that he was strongly considering pulling the United States out of NATO after allies failed to back the military action against Iran. Phil Stewart reports for Reuters. Reuters reports. Lebanon. Israeli strikes have killed more than 1,260 people in Lebanon and injured more than 3,750 others since the beginning of March, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. Anushka Patil reports for the New York Times. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz yesterday set out plans to occupy much of southern Lebanon, saying Israeli forces would maintain control over the entire area from the border to the Litani River after the offensive had concluded. The return of more than 600,000 residents of southern Lebanon who fled north will be completely prohibited south of the Litani until safety and security of northern Israeli residents is ensured, he said. West Bank violence. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk said yesterday that a new Israeli law making death by hanging a default sentence for Palestinians convicted in military courts of deadly attacks violated international humanitarian law. It raises serious concerns about due process violations, is deeply discriminatory, and must be promptly repealed, Turk said. Other global developments. Hundreds of thousands of Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh will receive reduced food assistance from today under the World Food Programme's new tiered system, with some getting only $7 per month. Kristen Gelano reports for AP News. Pakistan and Afghanistan's Taliban governments have resumed talks in China to broker a ceasefire, two Pakistani officials said today. China has not commented on the talks or its role as a mediator. Munir Ahmed and Elena Begatoros report for AP News. Hackers linked to North Korea breached Axios, a program that connects apps and web services, by adding their own malicious software to an update issued on Monday, Google said yesterday. North Korean hackers have deep experience with supply chain attacks, which they primarily use to steal cryptocurrency, a chief analyst for Google's threat intelligence group said. The malicious software, which has since been removed, could have given hackers access to a computer's data, including access credentials that can then be used to carry out additional data theft. A.J. Vicens reports for Reuters. A leaked audio recording published by investigative outlet V-Square yesterday reportedly captures Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov discussing efforts to influence EU sanctions in August 2024, though its authenticity has not been independently verified. Anita Komovis reports for Reuters. U.S. Immigration Developments. The Homeland Security Department is pausing the purchase of new warehouses intended to house immigrants, as it scrutinizes all contracts signed under former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, according to a senior DHS official. The official said that warehouse purchases that were already made are also being scrutinized. Rebecca Santana and Heather Hollingsworth report for AP News. U.S. Domestic Developments. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth yesterday nullified an Army investigation into the unauthorized helicopter flybys of musician Kid Rock's estate and anti-Trump protests in Tennessee over the weekend. Hegseth announced the move just hours after military officials opened their disciplinary review of the soldiers involved. No punishment, no investigation, carry on patriots, Hegseth wrote on social media. Tara Kopp, Alex Horton, and Dan Lamothe report for The Washington Post. Republicans are considering using the budget reconciliation process to fund the entire Homeland Security Department for the next 3 years. We are taking this off the table, Senator John Hoeven, RND, said on Monday as he disclosed the Republican intent to rely on the budgetary approach. That's enough of this with the Democrats. Carl Hulse reports for the New York Times. According to a Politico analysis, many U.S. attorney offices are operating without permanent leaders because the Trump administration keeps trying to install loyalists who are repeatedly disqualified by federal judges. As a result, at least 9 districts are now being run indefinitely by their second-in-command, often the first assistant U.S. attorney. The Supreme Court yesterday ruled that a Colorado law banning conversion therapy to change minors' sexual orientation or gender expression violated the First Amendment. In an 8-1 decision, the court found that the law, even though it was tailored to licensed professionals, does not overrule free speech protections. Justice Ketanji Brown was the lone dissenter, arguing that medical speech differs from generic free speech because patients need to rely on sound, industry-aligned advice. Avery Lotz and Josephine Walker report for Axios. Trump administration actions. Trump yesterday signed an executive order seeking to create lists of U.S. citizens who are eligible to vote in each state, and instructing the U.S. Postal Service to send mail ballots only to verified voters. The cheating on mail-in voting is legendary. It's horrible what's gone on. It's very clearly covered. I think this will help a lot with elections, Trump said in the Oval Office. Democratic elections lawyer Mark Elias said yesterday that he plans to sue Trump over the order. Aaron Pellish, Ben Johansson and Andrew Howard report for Politico. Ashley Lopez and Benjamin Swazi report for NPR. The Pentagon is considering sending a powerful anti-drone laser system to the military base in Washington, where Hegseth and Rubio reside, 4 sources said. The Army has been debating the deployment after reports of unusual drone activity in the airspace around Fort McNair. Placing the lasers would add a layer of complexity to the heavily traveled airspace over Washington. Kate Kelly, Eric Schmidt, and Tyler Pager report for the New York Times. Trump is set to attend today's Supreme Court hearing on birthright citizenship, according to his public schedule. Elvia Lamont reports for The Hill. Trump administration litigation. A federal appeals court yesterday paused a lower court ruling that ordered the Trump administration to reinstate all full-time Voice of America reporters and support staff who were put on paid leave after Trump moved to close the agency. Minho Kim reports for the New York Times. A federal judge yesterday ordered a halt to construction of Trump's White House ballroom, ruling that Trump lacks the authority to fund the estimated $400 million project through private donations. Dan Diamond and Jonathan Edwards report for The Washington Post. A federal judge yesterday ordered the University of Pennsylvania to comply with a subpoena from the Trump administration examining alleged harassment of Jewish employees. Hannah Salma Ramirez reports for Politico. A federal judge yesterday ruled that the Trump administration had illegally demanded that groups seeking homelessness grants comply with its agenda on immigration enforcement, transgender rights, and other unrelated issues. The judge ordered the Department of Housing and Urban Development to hold a new competition for the money without what she called arbitrary and capricious criteria. Jason DeParle reports for the New York Times. A federal judge yesterday ruled that Trump's executive order to end federal funding for NPR and PBS is unconstitutional. Aaron Pellish reports for Politico. A federal judge yesterday ruled that the Trump administration unlawfully ended the parole status of around 900,000 migrants who had been granted temporary permission to live in the United States under a Biden-era program and CBP One app. Rebecca Beich reports for The Hill. 3 former FBI agents filed a class-action lawsuit yesterday, claiming they were fired for political retaliation under FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi. The suit seeks to represent over 50 employees dismissed since Trump returned to the White House, alleging a broader campaign of politically motivated firings. Alan Feuer reports for the New York Times. Thank you for listening to Just Security's early edition today, April 1st, 2026. If you enjoy listening, Just Security's analytic articles are also available in audio form on the justsecurity.org website. To stay up to date on Just Security's analysis of law, policy, and current events, go to justsecurity.org. Subscribe to Just Security on Substack, and follow us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads.